What is going on, guys? Gavin here, and today I'm going to talk about the breaking news that took place earlier today. As you all know, the college football playoff is expanding to 12 teams now, per Pete Thamel and Heather Dinich earlier today. And this is going to be exciting, guys. I am excited. This could be either in 2026 or if they really want to push to start earlier, 2024. And personally for me, I think it's going to be 2024. I honestly do not see them waiting until 2026. If they need to, 2025 is probably the latest in my opinion. I think there's going to be a lot of push for the playoff to start sooner, as many teams have that opportunity now at a championship and the money that comes with it. Upsets could take place and make the postseason that much more magical in college football and make the playoff kind of what it was intended to be, the drama, the excitement, the anticipation. We all know who's going to go into the championship every year, but with the 12-team playoff, who knows? So yeah, I'm going to break that down. I'm going to give my thoughts on it. There's a lot of people who like it, and there's also a good amount that don't. And so I'll kind of break down what I'm seeing, what perspectives I'm getting, and kind of my own thoughts with it. But to start off, I'll reiterate what I said probably. I think that this is a good, healthy decision for college football. I think it adds a good meaning to different games at the end of the season and should be exciting. I'm excited to see what bowl games will be added into this playoff. Obviously, the first slot of games, the first 8 teams will be not playing in a bowl game. They'll be playing at the home team's football stadium. However, the next round, that's when bowl games will begin. And so we'll have 3 rounds, including the national championship of bowl games, which honestly is exciting. It should add some meaning to those bowl games, and I'm excited to see what those bowl games will be that will be in the playoff going forward. I think that this is great. This will certainly change the landscape of college football, which is for the best. I mean, unless you're an Ohio State fan, Alabama fan, you could argue Georgia fan, Michigan fan now, and anyways, Clemson fan, all of those teams that make it in every year. Michigan made it for the first year. I just corrected myself on that. Sorry about that. But the other 4 teams, they make it almost every single year that the college football playoff has been. And it's getting old. College football, I think the playoff is not as magical as it's intended to be, honestly. I mean, Georgia's storyline, yeah, that was cool last year. However, the previous storylines, I mean, it gets boring when it's the same teams every year. It gets boring that it's Alabama versus whoever can survive out of the other 2 teams. I think this is healthy. As I mentioned earlier, this adds opportunity for upsets. There's going to be a lot of motivated teams. And I've seen some interesting comments stating, this will certainly add more balance to the recruiting field, to the playing field. Oh, the Utah Utes can go into the playoff now? I'll go to the Utah Utes instead of riding the 3 years I have to wait to Alabama. Oh, Baylor could go into the playoffs. I'll go to Baylor instead of Ohio State. Like, this adds a great recruiting element to many teams that want to make the push for it, push for the playoffs. And so I think this certainly will even the playing field. I mean, I'm sure Ohio State and Alabama, they'll finish the top of the recruiting classes still, but I don't think they're going to get everybody per se. I think that this will make it more fair to all the other all the other schools trying to recruit. Now, NIL could also become more potent with it too, because with the 12-team playoff, rich schools like Miami and USC have a higher chance of getting in, and so they can entice with the NIL and the playoff, which could bring schools like Miami back up to prowess. USC, absolutely. Though we'll see how USC does in the Big Ten, which is going to be an ultra competitive conference for them. However, I am excited to see the opportunity it provides. Some old blue bloods may be able to become blue bloods again, you know. Some schools like Utah who are on the rise can get in. And one other thing too that should be interesting about the playoff that I've been thinking about. Hot teams like Baylor, like last year Baylor was hot ending that season. Their Big 12 championship season, they were hot. They ended 11-2, and then obviously they won their bowl game. Oklahoma State ended hot. I mean, I think that, you know, Pitt ended hot. Like, imagine if those teams were in the playoff. I mean, sure, maybe it might have been Alabama and Georgia still, but who knows? We'll never know with how hot those teams were. Ohio State being in there. We all know Ohio State is at that level. They could have competed in that playoff. I mean, they would have at least competed as well as Michigan. I mean, we all know that Ohio State would have been like the best chance, one of the best chances of, going to the national championship. That would give Ohio State the opportunity to be in there with 2 losses. And so it doesn't have to make the Michigan-Ohio State game necessarily a playoff game, which it kind of was last year as it kicked Ohio State out of the playoffs. So I'm excited to see what happens. I think that this is a great, healthy thing for college football, and I think it should add some meaning to some of those bowl games that, you know, a lot of people have been noticing. You know, the bowl games, not a lot of them really get that much, you know, love anymore. You know, there's still a good amount that do get watched, but I'm going to be honest. When I found out Kenny Pickett wasn't playing in the Pitt-Michigan State game, I didn't care about the Michigan State game at all. I didn't. I did not watch that game. I know it was a New Year's Six game, but now Kenny Pickett will, I mean, if Keaton Slovis and Pitt end up that high, they will stay. All those players will stay in theory if the playoff was now, but in 2024, whoever will be good, they will all stay for the playoff because they want to compete for that national championship, and that will add the element to make people want to watch those games. And if it is Alabama and Georgia who end up back in there, and there's no upsets, it's just those guys again, at least now we know with the teams that were always on the outside looking in, because I honestly think Baylor should have been in the playoff last year, or at least Notre Dame. I mean, though, actually no, I take back my comments about Notre Dame. They honestly played to the level of most of their opponents, but I mean, we never know. You never know what can happen. A team like Utah that was on fire last year against Oregon, and you could say what you want about the Utah-Ohio State game. Utah still competed against 3 4-star players. They still competed against 4-star players. Those backups were at least 3 or 4-star. You do not get recruited to Ohio State University as a 2-star recruit. So all the people making the argument that game that Utah would not compete, I want to see what teams like BYU could do. I want to see what teams like, some of the other teams like Oklahoma State, I want to see how they would compete against Ohio State. Teams like, Utah, they caught fire. And they could have made some noise in the playoff. I mean, according to PFF College, which honestly, they did break it down correctly, which is the tournament bracket of the top 6 conference champions being the higher 6, being automatic into the college football playoff, and then the next 6 highest rankings are at large. And Utah could have played Notre Dame, and with Notre Dame's ability to play at the level of their talent, Utah probably could have beaten Notre Dame. Honestly, I think if they had the momentum against Notre Dame, they probably could have beaten Cincinnati. I know I'm still not convinced that Cincinnati is a legitimate team. They still did compete as well as Notre Dame did against Alabama the year before, but still, I'm not convinced that Cincinnati is a top 10 team. Oh, okay. I'm not convinced they're a top 5 team. So I think Utah and Cincinnati could have had a good matchup. Utah probably could have won that. And then they faced the winner of whoever comes out of the Michigan, Ohio State, Michigan State bracket, side of the bracket. And then Pitt and Georgia. Imagine that. Pitt's defense was insane last year, as well as Kenny Pickett and Jordan Addison. The connection they had was unreal. Maybe they wouldn't have beaten Georgia, but they could have at least given Georgia a run for their money. And then Baylor would have had to survive Georgia, but Baylor's defense was amazing last year too. They could have probably given Georgia some trouble. Ole Miss and Oklahoma State, that would have been popcorn last year. You know, just looking at these matchups, the college football playoff landscape could have been completely different last year. The Final Four teams could have been different. Could have been more, had more zest to them. But yeah, I completely support the college football playoff expanding to 12 teams. I know there's a lot of traditionalists. I don't like it, but it's getting boring. It's getting boring knowing the 4 teams before the season is over. Before the season begins, it's getting boring knowing the same teams over and over and over and over and over again. Okay? Allow opportunities for Alabama to get upset. Literally, Alabama would have been the number 1 seed last year. But if they survived Baylor, if they survived whoever came out of Ole Miss, Oklahoma State, which they most definitely probably would have, they would have had to survive who came out of, the Baylor bracket with Georgia and Baylor and Pitt. And then they would have had to survive. I honestly think that it would have been healthy. I think that with how Alabama played last year, somebody probably could have upset Alabama before they made it to the national championship. Remember, they almost lost to Auburn. And remember, the beauty of football is upsets are possible. If you play harder than your opponent, upsets are possible. And that's what makes sports so awesome. And college football so awesome is upsets. And I think that college football playoffs, what better way to do it than with a 12-team playoff? Anyways, guys, I hope my rant made sense. If I had some dumb opinions, you can definitely fire back at me. I apologize. I kind of just went on a tangent, but I honestly am so excited. I am so excited. College football needed this, in my opinion. And I think it's going to add a great element to this sport. And I definitely think there's going to be more fans watching those playoff games now. And I think that it's going to be exciting. A lot of fan bases are definitely excited. I'm excited. I think that this will be great for the sport. And I think it'll be great for giving other teams the shot they deserve. Because we've all complained about, 5 and 6 being the first ones out. We were like, hey, they should have made the playoff over the 4th team, Now we know. Now we know what it would be like. Now we will know what it will be like. And I hope that it gets passed by 2024, like earlier mentioned. I think it will. I think, again, the push for the instant gratification is going to be real. And I think that the 2024 is very realistic for the college football playoff to begin. With the 12-team format, which should be exciting, and I cannot wait to see what happens. What do you guys think about this? Do you guys like it? Are you guys excited about this playoff expansion? Let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed this analysis. How can I improve? How can I become better? Please let me know down below. I'm still newer to all of this. I'm still newer to giving my opinions. I'm using this just to continue to grow, trying to build my brand, trying to become better, and I appreciate you guys tuning in. I hope that you guys all have a great night, and take care, guys.